I think you have 3 examples for today, not a super long lesson. And then I'm going to try something different with today's exit ticket, which is going to require you to have some self-control so you don't get all 30 problems. Please make sure your hands are off your faces because that means that you're like trying to sleep. To me, so please make sure your hands are off your faces, your head is up. This lesson is not super complicated, but it can be if you decide not to pay attention. All right, so you've done problems like this before in the past where you have the problem 5n, 5 times n, 5 times any number in infinity equals 21. And you know that in all these situations, hand off your face. And you know, in any of these situations, you know for a fact that whatever n is doing, you do the opposite. So this is 5 times n. So make sure you copy down the whole problem. Since it's 5 times n, you know that you're going to have to divide because division is the opposite of multiplication. Same thing like when you did the addition and subtraction, addition and subtraction ones. You do the opposite of what it's asking. Make sure you keep your hands down. I'm doing this one, the next couple ones, backside. Good to go. We'll do it together. The first one I'm just going to explain, so make sure you keep your voices off if you're tracking. So since this is 5 times n equals 21, we have to do the opposite. So like I said, you're going to divide 5n by 5 and 21 by 5. So you divide both sides by 5 because you'll never find out what n is unless you get rid of this 5. And whatever you did to the 5 has to be done over here. Because doesn't that kind of make sense? If you are trying to figure out how much water is, how many cups are in a pitcher, don't you just like take a cup and dump the pitcher in there the number of times like into the cup till it's filled up? And if you took all the cups that you poured the pitcher in and you poured it back into the pitcher, would that equal the same amount as the pitcher because you did the same exact thing out of and in of? So that's what it is. So since you had to multiply this side by 5, you're going to divide it by 5 and divide the other side by 5 to find that missing number. Because remember, we're trying to discover the unknown. Say questions to the end. You're distracting me and I'm trying to talk. Because we're trying to find the unknown number in this equation. So these become nothing. So now you're just left with n. Then you take 21, put it inside the house, and have 5 knocking at the door. Now, me, as a person who knows how to do division, I know 5 can't go into 2, but 5 can definitely go into 21 4 times. So I put a 4 up here and divide it. I have 1 left over. Now you're asking, what in the world do? You have a remainder 1. You cannot leave that remainder 1. There's 2 things you can do. You can either write it as a, like I said, I'm doing this one. You'll get to do the next one. We'll do the next one as a class. I want to make sure this is crystal clear to everybody. I know it's frustrating, but you guys got this. There's 2 ways. One, you can write it as a fraction, which would be you take the remainder, put it over the numerator as 1/5. Or, this is how my mind thinks. You put the decimal right here. I'm going to actually erase the 1/5 real quick. You want to keep making those noises. Cut it out.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't me.
So who was it?
How do you know that was not me?
Back. If you want to argue, you'll be senseless. All right. So you put a decimal there. You have to put a 0 there because there's an infinite amount of zeros behind it. Drop it down. Then me, as someone who's educated, bring the decimal up. 5 goes into 10 2 times. You got 0. So my answer is either 1.2 or 4 1/5. It is up to you. Now, any questions? London, when you feel ready, you may have a seat. Jonathan. Sorry, what?
Where did the decimal come from?
The decimal comes from because there's a decimal behind the 21. That's what makes it a whole number. There's always decimals behind. You see 1, you see 2, you see 3, there's a decimal right behind it. You don't put it there because why would you? It's like saying I'm wearing shoes. You don't need to tell me you're wearing shoes. I know you're wearing shoes. It'd be weird if you weren't. So that's what it's like. So once you hit that 21 area and you still have a remainder, you have to put the decimal right behind the 1 and go straight up. That means everything behind the 21 is going to have to be included in the decimal side. So that's why, because you can't get 5 into 1 any more times and you ran out of space. So that means all the whole number spaces are taken up. Does that make sense? No? This is what you're going to be doing all day. Any other questions before we move on to the we problems, where you guys actually now follow along? Kingston. Why did I write 4.2? Because how many times does 5 go into 10? So it goes into shit. So you can write it either way you'll be right. Personally, for me, I think the fraction way is a lot easier. Because whenever you get the remainder, you just put that on the numerator and put it over the denominator, whatever you divide it by. All right? Any other questions? All right. Now, Reese?
Where did the 40
The 4 from?
The 40.
The 40?
No.
The 4. That's a 10, honey. It's just my sloppy handwriting. It's 10 minus 10. That's my bad. I have sloppy handwriting. I'm working on it. All right. Example 2. First step, copy it down. Make sure you get it down. Example 2. You got one more after this is a we. Then you get your exit ticket. That's a you. You get to do it by yourself. All right. So you copy it down. It should be exactly like it is on the board. First, the second step is to figure out what you're doing. Since this is multiplying with a strong silent hand, what are you going to be doing to both sides? Since it's multiplying, what are you going to be doing to both sides? Remember, I said it has to be the opposite of multiplication. So what are you going to be doing to both sides? Mari? What? What?
I said divide.
There you go. Divide. Thank you. Please speak up. So you take 0.6 m over 0.6 equals 0.04 over 0.6. Right. As you know, these cancel out because they're exactly the same. So now you're just left with m equals. London, which one goes inside the house? The top one or the bottom?
The top one.
Yes, perfect. 0, 0, 4, 8 over 0.6. All right, now, some of you are just like either not moving your heads, which was really disappointing, and some of you were honest and saying you don't quite understand what to do when you divide a decimal by decimal. What's the first step you do when you're dividing by a decimal? It doesn't matter if it's inside the house, but it matters when it's outside. London?
Don't you put like a decimal somewhere?
Sorta. Reese?
You move the decimal.
You move it. You move it. Marquise, don't be copying me like that. The next one will be a deduction. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
You move the decimal over. The number of times is to make this 6 into a whole number by itself. So that means you want to get a 6, which means you had to move it over once. So now you got 0.48. All right. That's how you have to do it. You have to move the decimal over if the number outside the house is a decimal. All right. Now you just divide. Class, make sure your listening ears on. I want to do this super, super quick because the first couple ones are super easy. Class, what is 6 times 0?
0.
Class, what's 6 times 0?
0.
All right, decimals right here. We hit the decimal. We hit the wall, which means you have to bring it straight up, put it right there. How many groups of 6 can go into 4? Class.
0.
Good. So now we have a bunch of zeros. Now we have 48. How many groups of 6 can go into 48? Mariah? Anyone want to dispute? No, because she's right. Which gets you 8. 6 times 8 is 84, 48. That's it. All right. Now, this one, boys and girls, I would do as a decimal because if the numbers in the front are zeros, you don't want to have, it's just going to be awkward, especially when you get to the hundredth place. All right, so leave this one as a decimal. So your final answer would be 0.08. Any questions before Ms. Johnson takes the floor?
No.
London?
Okay, so this is gonna be on our education, and all we have to do is just divide.
Essentially. All right, Reese, save it. Ms. Johnson's going to speak.
No, it's just for you.
Oh. Yeah, that'd be cool. Excellent.
Thanks for letting me interrupt. Great.
Why is there 3 zeros?
Sorry, what?
Oh, when you divide it, well, because my problem is 3 zeros.
Right, because that one's redundant. You don't need that third zero. Because that's like saying you have 3 hands when you only just need 2. So you just drop it off. You only zero in front of the decimal you need is the one right in front of it. The rest are redundant. Pointless. No need whatsoever. Useless. Other words to describe. I don't know. All right, last one. This is a week. Then you get to your exit ticket. We have a bunch of time. First things first, the first step is always to copy it down. So rewrite the problem in your notes. That is step 1, copy it down. It is 45 equals 4x. All right. Now, I know 45 is on the other side, but really it's the same exact thing. You can flip it around all you want as long as 45 is on one side and 4x is on the other. So what are we doing? Since it's 4x, are we adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Are we adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Janasia? Correct, thank you. Awesome. It is division. So you take 45 divided by 4 equals 4x divided by 4. And as you know, the 4s, what happens to the 4s, London?
Oh.
What happens to the 4s over here?
You multiply, right?
No, they're dividing. Marquise? Which means that you just, Monte? Yeah, you just cross them out because they'll equal 1. So now I'm going to write this x over here because I like it being on the left. So now we have x equals, big part of our problem, just done. Now we got to do something else. Which one goes in the house, one goes outside the house? London, Holland. I mean, not Holland, Henderson. Correct. And the 4 goes on the outside. I want to do this quickly because I want to get to our exit ticket and explain to you how it's going to be different. Okay? Class, how many groups of 4 can go into 4?
1.
Correct, 1. So 4 minus 4, 0. Drop down the 5. Give you a couple seconds to make sure you get that in your notes because I did draw it on there. How many groups of 4 go into 5? Class.
One.
Class?
One.
There you go. 1. Got 1 left over, which means, Jonathan, watch this part. Since we just hit the wall, you put the decimal, because it's there, it's always there, shoot straight up, and you add a 0. Now you have 10. London? No. But how many groups of 4 go into 10 London?
2.
Thank you. Which gets us 8. 10 minus 8, I'm going to bring it up here, so please don't be confused. Which will be 2. You're going to have to add a 0 here. Bring it over here. Please make sure you have enough space. I poorly did mine. I wrote too big. All right, so now we have 20. How many groups of 4 go into 20? Kingston?
5.
Correct. It'd be 5. So your answer would be 11.25. Or for a payment, what would it be as a fraction? Destiny? Correct. So those are your 2 options for answers. You can always know it's 1/4 because 0.25 is always 1/4. It's like 1/4. Get it? It's course. Reese, what's your question? You don't have to do both of them. You have to do one of them. So you either choose have your answer as a decimal or have your answer as a fraction. Now, if you have a repeating decimal, which means it's like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 forever and ever, there's no end to it, I would say turn that into a fraction. London.
Why do we use the decimal? Why do we use the decimal? Like if you want to put it in the decimal form, why do you use it?
It depends usually with the person, because some people can be like 1/4. Oh, that makes sense. Some people are like, what do you mean by 1/4? You say 0.25, you're like, oh, I get it. It's personal preference, really. Also, it's ease, because sometimes, like I said, if you get a repeating decimal, it's like 2 to infinity. Do you want it 2 to infinity? No, you just write it as a fraction. It's also laziness. So it's up to you and laziness. Okay? Kingston.
Can you turn the decimal turn the decimal into a fraction?
Sorry, what?
Can you turn the decimal into a fraction?
Yeah, we did that right over here. Do you mean the whole thing? Yeah, well, then you would just take 11 and turn it into an improper fraction. So it'd be more useless work. Because you need it as this. You can't have it as an improper fraction. So don't overthink it. Once you get to this point, you're good. All right? Everyone good? All right, this is how I want to try it, because I'm going to be trying to do this next year. And those at home, you guys make sure